This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
When evaluating potential hires for your small business, it's essential you look beyond resumes. Sure, a candidate may appear impressive on paper, but understanding the person is crucial. LinkedIn, the world's largest professional network, provides a complete view of your candidate's skills, experiences, and interests. With LinkedIn's up-to-date data, you can be confident that you really know who you're hiring. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
In Walmart Sue Newville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego Flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Newville, East, West, South, and North could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
That bring back memories.
Fergie Suter, you and I are going to make history.
That's the reason I brought you here.
I know where the sun rises.
Only gentlemen have lifted the cup. Men from fine schools with fine clothes, fine lives.
I know where the sun sets.
Imagine what it would mean to see men like us lift it. That's the dream.
I know where the sun rises.
Business of football is growing.
You're afraid of them, aren't you?
You're afraid new teams like Darwin will take over your game.
We invented it for gentlemen.
I paid my dues with holes in my shoes.
I've seen you play. You're a genius. People won't stop shouting your name.
The market is saturated.
Our mills are struggling to turn a profit.
Whilst our wages are being cut, you were paying them to play football.
But that's against the rules.
Rivalry is good for business.
Their stomachs will be empty long before our pockets.
I love you, Arthur, but this game brings out the worst in you.
There are people who don't think working men should be playing the game.
I feel like a fraud.
You've got a gift, son. A chance to get out of this life.
England 1879, with football still in its infancy and an amateur sport, listeners. Upper-class teams led by the Old Etonians have dominated the early years of the FA Cup. But a revolution is brewing against the rules of the FA. James Walsh, the owner of working-class side Darwin FC and its associated mill, secretly pays talented Scottish players Fergie Suter and Jimmy Love to join his team ahead of a cup quarter-final against the Old Etonians, whose roster features several members of the FA board, including team captain Arthur Kinnaird. Welcome, dear listeners, to Achtung Football History. That trailer you heard was the Netflix trailer for a fascinating series that we're going to be talking about now with our show regular, Neil Andrews. Welcome, Neil.
Regular. This is the first time I've been on this year.
You are regular.
December.
You're part of the foundations of the show, and you know it.
A long it turns up at Christmas. The ghost of Christmas. Listening.
Oh dear. The English Game is the Netflix series, dear listeners. Now, I'm not going to claim that this is any kind of recent review. It was brought out in 2020, so we're only just short of 6 years off the pace here, Neil. Very Millwall approach to review. But this is a series by the Julian Fellowes, the writer of Downton Abbey, and it concerns, as that intro there will have given you the impression, listeners, of the early years of professional football. Downton Abbey is the famous one by this guy, Neil, and I think there's probably a strong crossover between the two series. I've never watched Downton Abbey other than in patches, but I quite enjoyed the English Game. We'll go on to its elastic use of football history in a moment, of course. But did you enjoy it as a watch? Did you find it a good show?
I did. I must admit, it surprised me. I mean, I'm aware of Julian Fellowes' work
Yeah.
outside of Downton Abbey, and the guy can write. I was dubious that it was on Netflix, and I was dubious the way most people treat this kind of era, and getting the facts right. And yes, they are a bit liberal with the truth for dramatic effect.
More than liberal.
Yeah,
But yeah.
and in terms of continuity, but in terms of the general ambience and getting the brushstrokes and the foundations of the game, I thought it was pretty spot on, and it was interesting, and the football sequences are realistic, which
Yeah.
is always the first thing you look for. But yeah, it was an interesting addition to the should we say the vault of football dramas that have gone and been and gone over the years, including films, and I think it's up there in terms of, well, it's highly watchable. It is entertaining. You do get drawn into the storyline. You do get drawn into the characters. You do get drawn into, the series as a whole. It's just, if you know your football, that bit can be a bit distracting, should we say? But yeah, overall, very good.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know your football, or if football is not your main interest in life beyond the surface, I mean, I watched it with my wife, and she enjoys football, but she wouldn't be able to tell you her Arthur Kinnairds from her Jimmy Loves, But I think as an educational, within what you've said, the kind of fairly, they combine a lot of history and roll up the two clubs the club that they feature is called, well, it's one Darwin that did exist, but then there was Blackburn Olympic and Blackburn Rovers, which they kind of merge into one generic club called Blackburn, which, the purists will always be able to pull it to pieces. But I think as a general, an intro, if you want, and take it as far as you like any further. But as a general introduction to the origins of the professional game, and the kind of tension between amateur and professional play that was very, very alive back then, it's a good intro, and I enjoyed the story. A little bit Catherine Cookson for anyone whose mum used to read those romantic kind of novels. A bit glossy. It depicts industrial life in the north of England in a fairly clean way. No one's covered in grease, and everyone's a bit too pretty. But it's reasonably on point, I thought, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think a lot. There's a lot of CGI in it as well.
Yeah,
There's a lot of CGI. Yeah, I don't watch Call the Midwife, but when I've had the misfortune of being sat down,
you're aware of it, clearly.
Yeah, it's like the thing I found really distracting, apart from the fact, having grown up near Poplar, I know it's a load of bollocks. But there was, I always remember this, sat down, and it's like, the family were watching it at the time, and it was like there were three nurses sitting on a park bench, and it was clearly green screened. It's like, just go to a park and sit on a bench,
Yeah, you'd think they would do that. I mean, this is not bad. It's got a 7.6 rating, listeners, on the imdb.com website, which is the Bible of TV and film drama. So, and I think that's about right for me, Neil. 7.6. I'd say we'll give it a 7 out of 10 as a watch.
As you say, I approached it very cautiously, but it was engaging enough to want to watch the next episode. I watched that King and Conquer recently, and I gave up after 4 episodes.
Yeah, no, this didn't. This wasn't a giver up. I thought the first episode was maybe the slowest in some ways, but it actually showed the series rests on the relationship between Arthur Kinnaird, who is the rich public schoolboy son of Lord Kinnaird, who is I think he's a bank owner. He owns his own bank in the city. And as we've said already, Fergie Suter, both real people. Fergie Suter was the first, is listed on Wikipedia, and it was the first true football star, a professional. I suppose Kinnaird might also claim that title as well, of being a football star in its early days. And Fergie Suter, real person, a Scottish stonemason. I suppose that really takes you to the heart of the drama, that the working classes were, engaged in jobs, and those that were good at football were paid as a kind of a side. Almost that was became the job became second to their main roles as a football on a Saturday afternoon as a means of entertainment.
I mean, Fergie Suter was a stonemason. You don't see any stonemasonry in the drama series because he's working in a factory.
Yeah,
And a lot's made of him signing with Jimmy Love, but Jimmy Love actually came down separate. Believe it or not, he actually came down from Glasgow to escape the bailiffs who were after him because he owed money to someone.
Really are.
He ended up. He didn't break his leg. As sorry for any spoilers in this series, but
I don't think we need to worry about spoilers. 6-year-old series now, and
he actually ended up joining the army and died in Egypt. I think it was from dysentery. But yeah, like you say, it's very good at depicting the rise of professionalism, which is a very interesting subject in terms of British history, not only football but also rugby, cricket, and how in cricket, the professionals actually dominated games to the points that the amateurs used to play with 22 players and still lost. Extra stuff and still lost, that kind of thing. So it does portray how the professionals changed the game, and I think one of the most interesting parts of the program is when Darwin have a fight back in the second half. I think it was a cup quarter final, which is actually true. They passed the ball, which, believe it or not, passing the ball was a major revolutionary tactical change.
A Scottish tactic. It had arisen from the Queen's Park side.
It was a Scottish tactic, which, the jokes aside, up until recently, we'd seemingly forgot how to employ in a game. Find someone in the same shirt for love nor money. But in terms of that was kind of really accurate and on ball, and their reaction of kicking players out of the game was actually part and parcel of the game. Kicking players and hacking, as it were, which kind of then led to rugby being formed and what have you. So in that respect, it's actually a good way to dip your toes into the water. But it's like any historical drama. You look at Band of Brothers, that has some mistruths in it as well. But you wouldn't say that's a bad series by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm currently watching The Offer, the one about the making of The Godfather. And that has a few dramatic elements that are added to heighten the tension, as it were. So you can understand why they've done it. And you can understand why they've made it easier to have a clearer narrative and a clearer flow for the audience. And even combining the two Blackburns, yes, it's technically true that Fergie Suter won the FA Cup with Blackburn Rovers. Yes, it's technically true that Blackburn Olympic did beat the Old Etonians in the cup final, and that was the first time they lost, etc. But they've combined that to create Blackburn for dramatic effect. So if you can get past that, it's quite good, but it's like a good comparison to the kind of modern day is the Brian Clough film, Damned United.
The Damned United, yeah.
So that's that had some real major mistruths in it for dramatic effects, like Dave Mackay taking over the job from Brian Clough as if he'd backstabbed him, where in fact that Dave Mackay had gone off to Swindon, then Notts Forest to manage.
That's
and
right,
then
managed elsewhere. I suppose it's this eternal dilemma that you're not producing a historical lecture. You're producing a work of drama that you want people to watch and to stick with. So you need the story, and you need an easy story in truth, because the truth is a much more complicated thing, isn't it?
It's like the Blackadder's are a good example. Blackadder Goes Forth is wildly historically inaccurate and follows the common trope fallacies around the First World War. The trenches. Not
lions
much
led by donkeys. Yeah.
That. But at the same time, it was also bloody funny. But did I watch it to be given a history lesson or to be entertained? And the truth is to be entertained. So you do overlook those kind of things, and I think it's a good case for this as well. If you're talking pure drama, then obviously you're talking things like The Manageress, aren't you? Which was pure drama.
Well, there was the other one that they used to film at the Den, the Sky TV thing. Its name escapes me now, but
the Dream Team.
Dream Team. Yeah, I mean, again, that's it's drama, and this is highly watchable. This is a 6-part piece. It's on Netflix, listeners, so you can see it. It's been out since 2020, as I've said already. So I'm not claiming this to be any kind of recent review, but I just came across it when my wife put it on a few weeks back, and I thought it would be a great choice for speaking to Neil about, because it does show many aspects of the early game, not least the difference between the approach, and it began in Scotland, the idea of dribbling, versus the old Etonian public schoolboy approach, which almost lined everyone up in one long line, and they kind of almost physically pushed their way through as individual versus individual, Neil, didn't they?
It's also and going back to the manageress. Yes, it's of its time. I watched that quite recently, and it's surprisingly good. It's withheld the test of time. But even you go back then, they feature the rise of agents. They feature racism in the game. They feature the lives of professional footballers when they're earning couple more hundred of quid a week than most normal people, and if they got fined, that was their gas bills kind of thing. So, it's the same thing with this, although, you're right. When, you look at the factories and they're all very clean, you compare that to, and I'm going to mention Golden Gordon from Ripping Yarns, and that setting of Yorkshire life, that was very, very accurate. Whereas this is cleaner than Ripping Yarns kind of thing in terms of the way it's presented. But I think the drama behind it, and I think the truth behind Kinnaird support for professionalism and the change of the game, I think, is the real key here and the real driver. And the emotion behind it, and the real class distinction as well. Which you see a lot of banners on Facebook and what have you these days about stolen from the poor by the rich, when in fact that's not true. It's the rich's
No, there was
game.
a previous transaction from the rich towards the poor, actually, because
Yeah.
this captures it. I mean, it's in the early phase of the series. There's the mix between the leading clubs, Wanderers and old Etonians and others, and the FA board. Everyone was intermingled. The players are often members of the board that was supposedly running the game and the FA Cup competition. And I think one of the themes of the series, Neil, is what you just touched on. This idea that the game is owned and run by the public schoolboys, and probably football alone. This didn't really happen in cricket. It certainly didn't happen in the likes of rugby union either. But there was a kind of an acceptance that this game, football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, was the game that was going to take real hold, and the working classes in places like Darwin, Blackburn, and others up north, gradually in the south, were the coming force. And so that kind of sense that your game is going to become somebody else's game is part and parcel of the theme of this series, isn't it?
It's the accessibility of football.
Yeah.
At the time, the rules of rugby weren't as clearly defined. So, you had different rules going around the country. And it was the same to a certain extent in cricket. There were different rules in different parts of the country,
Yeah.
To Paul, if you go into a strange pub, you got different rules to, when you pot the black, that kind of thing. That was
Different
the rules of
dart
cricket.
balls. There are variations on even darts in the different locations.
Going back to accessibility, I mean, cricket, you need 5 days off. You need, umpires.
Daytimes off.
Yeah, you need this big space. Rugby, you need the post to put the ball through. And although that was true to football to a certain degree, it was very accessible, and all you needed was a ball and jumpers for goalposts. And I think what's good here is that, you get a sense of the growing popularity of the sport in terms of, when you see Darwin play Old Etonians, it's at the Old Etonians ground where it looks like a park recreation ground where there's no nets, and then later on, do they go to Blackburn or they go to another northern club, and they've got, a stadium, not a ramshackle stadium, it's a stadium that's been freshly built for the purpose of football, which is kind of when it kind of sinks in that this game is rapidly becoming a form of entertainment and popularity that's affordable to, for want of a better phrase, the working classes. But this whole as well, plays a big part in that. They can't do the replay because they can't get the time off work.
Yeah, that's one of the early storylines, listeners. There's the Darwin side pull off a draw against the odds slightly, because this was a major side in the old Italians, but they couldn't afford to come back down for a replay. There's a bit of jiggery poker with the rules and whether they can or can't play extra time. I think sometimes captains could decide that. It was almost like a casually arranged agreement between gentlemen almost. So there's a bit of that. I think probably what it also really illustrates, and I think it's when you look at the attendances for the FA Cup final, I think the first one, if memory serves, only a couple of thousand at the Kennington Oval, but then by maybe 10 years later, the FA Cup final's becoming this, what it would go on to become this major, huge attendance played, in front of tens of thousands of people. The attendance expansion is so fast, and it shows the way that football, probably alone amongst sports worldwide now, grabs the imagination, and it shows particularly the people of Darwin and then Blackburn, becoming seized by this idea that their town can be represented and to pull off this major shock of beating the establishment almost, the way it's portrayed in the series anyway.
It's kind of winning the cup, but did you ever see the Captain's Tale?
No,
the Dennis Walker.
Oh, that's the one. West Auckland. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Available on YouTube. But again, if you want to talk about dramas, that's probably one of the best football.
That's a
dramas,
good one. Yeah, that was made in I'm sure it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Early 80s. It was about 82. They made it in time for the World Cup. It's available on YouTube. It features a lot of famous people. My favourite person in it is Jeremy Bullock, who played Boba Fett. So if you want to know what Boba Fett looks like, he's the centre half of West Auckland. But again, you see them down the coal pit. You see them selling their goods off to go to Turin, kind of thing. You see.
This was the forerunner of the World Cup, wasn't it? It was.
You see the oversight. You see the poverty of these working class.
Oh yeah.
Don't really see that in this thing because, like you say, it's very, very clean.
It's glossy. There's a glossiness to it, which fits in with the Netflix vibe, doesn't it? I mean, this is not, this is produced, I think, for an audience worldwide, and they want to see a certain type of Britain of the 19th century. So,
it's like the Mexicans in the Magnificent Seven. When they made it in Mexico, there was a rule that the Mexicans couldn't look dirty, which is why they all wear nice gleaming white Persol suits.
White teeth.
And it's that kind of thing that kind of not detracts it because you've still got the politics behind it, like when Fergie Suter leaves Darwin to join Blackburn Rovers.
Yeah.
You've got the emotion, you've got the claims of being a Judas,
a betrayal. He moves clubs. He moves jobs technically, doesn't he? He gets a job somewhere else, and he's paid.
You've also got the Darwin chairman, and him running out of money, so he can't compete with it. You've got those truths behind it. So again, if you can see past that, it's actually quite a good drama. But I think because it's Julian Fellowes, they tried to make it as much like Downton Abbey, like you said, for the international market.
Yeah, I found it highly watchable. We're going to take a short break for any adverts that might appear in our listeners. Do stay tuned.
The Freddy Fazbear box just dropped at Popeyes for $7.99, and it's scary good. Garlic palm tenders and cheesy bites with marinara sauce. Upgrade to the deluxe box for $12.99 and get a 20-ounce drink in a cupcake cup. Dig in
before it's too late.
Try the Freddy Fazbear Crunch menu, now at Popeyes. See Five Nights at Freddy's 2, only in theaters. Love that chicken from Popeyes. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Prices may vary.
Welcome back, dear listeners. The main protagonist, obviously we've mentioned Fergie Suter, one of the early professionals in the game and probably one of the earliest stars. The other star that is featured is Arthur Kinnaird, the 11th Lord Kinnaird, who is quite a figure in the game, Neil, isn't he? He was both the star player, if you want, for the Old Etonians and took a leading role in the formation of the Football Association, which was formed originally in 1863, and then obviously the creation of the FA Cup, which was its standout competition really up until the formation, I suppose, of the Football League in the late 1880s. He's quite an interesting figure, Lord Kinnaird.
Fascinating figure. He played everywhere.
Yeah.
Basically, he played every position on the field. Very influential in the growth of the English game.
Yep.
Very influential in the growth of professionalism. Very influential in the growth of international football. You know, you could argue the game wouldn't have been the same without his presence. But the thing that always I think of when everyone mentions Lord Kinnaird, because as you know, I have a fascination with goalkeepers.
You do.
He was the first player ever to score an own goal in a cup final.
I didn't know that.
He was in goal and he caught the ball and stepped back over the line and then tried to convince the referee he hadn't and was cheating, but it went down. He then, in his position, got the goal officially scrubbed out as an own goal, but then they put it back in after he died. So he was quite a proud man and didn't want that against his record. But yeah, if anyone, I'd often say, even if you're just going on and read his Wikipedia profile, you see just how much influence he had.
Yeah, do. I mean,
He was
that's what I'm looking at. I mean, just going back to the series for a moment. I mean, the journey of the series, if you want to put it in these terms, listeners, is that Arthur Kinnaird starts with a certain arrogant, what's the word? Almost like an expectation that they're going to win and how they have every right to win, and are willing to bend rules, pull them a little bit in their favour. And the journey of the series is that eventually comes to respect the figure of Fergie Suter, who is very much from the working class. They have a mutual respect. I think that's how much of that is real, how much of that is dramatic license. I don't know. It makes for a decent watch. But yeah, Arthur Kinnaird, Lord Kinnaird, first chairman of the FA, held the record for the most, playing in the most FA Cup finals, Neil. 9 FA Cup finals. His record of 5 wins in the competition stood until 2010 when it was broken by the figure of Ashley Cole, who equalled his 5 wins in the FA Cup. But yeah, there he is, chairman of the FA for 33 years.
He would probably like that irony that a boy from Stepney broke his record.
He was renowned as the show does show the physical side of it. It doesn't really pull its punches on this. That Lord Kinnaird was renowned as the toughest tackler of his day, giving rise to the possibly apocryphal story that his wife once expressed the fear he would come home with one day with a broken leg. A friend of his is said to have responded, "You must not worry, madam. If it does, it won't be his own leg."
Yeah.
And he's fond of hacking, and this was one of the great divides in the game, there wasn't it? The
It
FA
was so hacking. It was essentially studs up, kicking an
yes.
opponent,
Deliberately kicking your opponent.
which is how rugby union was formed.
Yeah.
So when it happened, those that liked hacking went off and formed rugby. I say union because then obviously league followed later, but yeah.
Another professional v amateur divide there, created rugby league.
Yeah, Blackie wanted to retain hacking, so went and did the rugby football rules, and then you've got association football rules, etc. But yeah, so nasty kind of way of going. But this was the Victorian era when men were men, and if you stood in the way, I'm going to break your legs.
Yeah, he says at one point in one of the first games shown in the series, he literally barges Suter out of the way. He was a skillful player. And slight being from the working class, whereas the public school boys being well fed are burly. And he barges him out of the way and says, "I don't think this game's for you, old man," as a kind of a dismissive, get out of our way type of idea. But the journey of the series is that he does come to respect Suter, and by extension, therefore, the working class that would go on to take the game to its the all-consuming levels that we see now, Neil. I mean,
it's like anything, when you, as they say in the series, you can't keep the game to yourself.
No,
and I think the threats that they were going to go away and form, and they did form the league, but they're going to go away, do their own cup, which would then undermine, what was the FA Cup. I think were very, very real. And you got to adapt, and you got to grow, and you got to develop. But that era produces some, some very odd facts, and odd, you've got obviously, the Royal Engineers winning the cup.
Yeah.
There's a real confusion. Everyone says Dave Besant was the first captain to win the FA Cup or lift the FA Cup. He wasn't. It was the goalkeeper of the Royal Engineers who was a major.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it got lost down time because when they saw captain next to him, they thought that was his rank, not he was the captain of the team. But he was actually a major. He lifted it. Merriweather is his name.
Okay.
Major Merriweather lifted the FA Cup as captain goalkeeper years before Dave Besant. But yeah, there was a confusion around his rank. But yeah, you've got other things. When Hyde lost 26-0 and Arbroath beat Bonaccord,
36-0,
yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah, for them, yeah.
but I think Bonaccord were either a cricket team or a rugby team that had entered, and
Almost,
turned up with that kit.
almost in error, in the wrong sport there.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing you get here. That should we say the old school network would enter competitions and then get roundly beaten because they just expected to turn up and win because by the grace of God they were noble Englishmen and
That's right.
everyone
With
was
every right to rule. I love this. Just looking at Lord Kinnaird's Wikipedia page. Do have a look, listeners. As Neil has said, it's very interesting. He had other interests, not just football, despite being Mr. Football, if you want to put it in those terms. He was an all-round sportsman. He won the Cambridge Blue at real tennis. That's the game that's played where you have like an alleyway down one side and a dipping net on real tennis. He won the canoe race at the 1867 Paris exhibition. He was Cambridge University's swimming and fives. Fives is a ball game. It's like a football game, I think, fives. And he won the Eton College 350-yard race in 1864. Not only that, he was president of the YMCA and the YWCA, director of Barclays Bank, Lord High Commissioner to the Assembly of the Church of Scotland, honorary colonel of the Tay Division submarine miners, a volunteer unit of the Royal Engineers. Back to the Royal Engineers again. And he was appointed Knight of the Thistle by George V in the 1914 birthday honours list, as well as winning the FA Cup with the Wanderers, the first winners of the FA Cup, and also then the Old Etonians. Huge figure, huge. I'm going to close today's show in a little bit with another story about Arthur Kinnaird before we close. But I have to mention the change in sports reporting, Neil. The first time that a working class team won the FA Cup was in 1883 with the victory of Blackburn Olympic, as we've said. I've sent over the huge coverage given to it by the Witness Examiner. They mentioned by the way, almost under the football column, which is a couple of paragraphs underneath, Blackley versus Widnes second teams, Lancashire Association Challenge Cup final. And then beneath that is the Association Challenge Cup. Blackburn Olympic beat the Old Etonians. Next to an advert for Bramwell's gastric mixture, which is a safe and speedy remedy for flatulence, wild spasms, amongst other things, pain in the side and vomiting. And giddiness. That was it. One paragraph. And there was, by the way, the Blackburn Olympic won the FA Cup. I just love the, no 8-page spreads then, was there?
Well, football reporting's got ridiculous these days, and I think we mentioned it before, there's far too many football books these days. Anyone can write a book about football, be it ridiculous subjects, There's books coming out on the Rumblow's Cup over 2 seasons, or there's, the great...
You're not writing that one,
No, and then, fair play to these people writing these books, etc. But I think we've got to the point of saturation.
Which quality is the thing, I'm going to blow your trumpet. I read your book on Zaire, 1974, and it's an actual both political and, if you want, historical analysis, as well as the football of the World Cup, 1974. It's a serious piece of work, and I think it's the quality that's the thing, Neil. Because as you say, you're right. Anyone with a keyboard now can probably turn out a book of some sort, whether it's any good or not. It's the key point, and I think the sheer amount of it is like the internet generally, isn't it? I mean, the sheer quantity.
Yeah, I'm not being harsh on it. I'm by any stretch of the imagination, and that's not my intention. But you think back to when we're growing up. You turn to the back pages. You read about possible transfers. You read about this and that. You read about the results. Now you put out sections in the Times where they discuss the tactics in depth, and they use this 1x, about goals being scored and what have you. And it's like, who cares?
There's only so much you can do. I think, to be honest, and I speak as a as a podcaster myself, but there's so many people doing stuff now. You start to get lost in it all, don't you?
Well, I think the worst thing I saw was actually on LinkedIn quite recently. Someone who will remain anonymous, who was quite high up in a betting company, actually posted, "I absolutely hate the international breaks with every bone in my body, both professionally and socially." And for someone who holds that position, it's like it's the sky. I no longer have the England game, so all of a sudden, international football is secondary to league football and blah blah blah. And he wrote this, and then you had the passion of Troy Parrott scoring that hat trick and getting that last minute winner to get them into the playoffs.
And then the Scots, in fairness, the 4-2 win over Denmark.
You had three of the greatest goals ever in Scottish football. And the sheer emotion and passion that generated. I mean, if you've I don't know if you have, I have seen all the videos of the last goal by Kenny McLean. People are waiting for the final whistle. They're all the same. They're swearing at the ref. They're calling the ref all the names under the sun. But the best one's actually at Hampden. Someone's got the camera on the crowd waiting for the final whistle, and they'll go ref, 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 and suddenly you just hear silence. So you just see their heads go, follow this ball
as it arcs into the net. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like if you do not understand that about international
football, it's a nice way to, because it takes us back to the series which captures football's ability to illuminate the lives of those that otherwise mightn't have that illumination. I don't know if that's overcooking it. Certainly, it's a very watchable series. I do. If you haven't seen it, listeners, do give it a go. It's on Netflix. And you can watch it with your missus, because I think there's enough football in there and there's enough story in there to keep both of you happy. And I think
there's an element of romance as well.
There is, and there's the romance. We haven't really dwelt on the storyline. There's romance. There's the harsh social conditions of orphanages and position of women in that society. The so-called good old days that you often hear about. I've got to close though, Neil, because this is a Millwall show, and we must always try and drag everything possible back to Millwall in the end, mustn't we? I'm going to refer back to Lord Kinnaird and the opening. He was the one final anecdote. He was the guest of honour when Mill's Coldblow Lane ground was opened in October 1910. Famous loss at home to Brighton and Hove Albion, but Lord Kinnaird was there.
Oh, it was Bristol Rovers.
Sorry,
it was Bristol Rovers. Because when we played the last game, it was against Bristol Rovers, and we lost that one as well. I am 99.9% certain it was Bristol Rovers.
Was it? I thought it was Brighton. Where did I get that from? I'm going to check it now.
I'm not even sure Brighton were in the league.
I'm gonna edit this to whatever way this goes, Neil. I'm going to edit it so it sounds like I knew what I was talking about, because that's the godlike position that I put myself in. Let's have a look. It was 1910, wasn't it? In October 10, 1910.
No, you're right. It was Brighton over Albion.
There we are.
I'm
going to leave all that in.
League Why did I think it was Bristol Rovers? I swore it was.
I think Bristol was the last one.
Yeah, but I remember there was a bookend about Bristol. In the Athletic News, Lord Kinnaird ordeal there as well. The president of the Football Association, Lord Kinnaird, with his auburn beard now blanched, was a central figure in a most unostentatious,
undignified,
in London on Saturday when he opened the new ground of Millwall, the first champions of the Southern League. The old Etonian unlocked the gate for players to pass the arena. This fine sportsman, who stands for all that's good in our great winter game, admitted the bounding players to the arena, walked to the centre of the field, then turned his steps to the centre of the grandstand, where, with the presentation key, he said, "Open sesame," and took his seat. That was all deemed necessary by Mr. J.B. Skeggs and his board. Footballers are men of action, and they were pining to be at it.
Open sesame. That's the opening words of Coldblow Lane from Lord Kinnaird. But there's a great picture of him having to be helped over the fence. He went to the wrong end of the ground to come in initially, listeners. And they had to be there's pictures of him with the mayor of, I think it must be the mayor of Lewisham or Southwark, with their hands on his bum, pushing him over the little side fence at the Den. And as the great James Murray booklet has it there, a most undignified way to treat one of the great figures of the game. I don't think old Infantino got that kind of treatment when he came to the Den last season, did he?
We should have done. Oh, here we go. Bristol Rovers played the first league game at the Den. Football.
Oh, there we are. There we are. We've sorted it out.
Right.
We've sorted it out.
Just in different ways.
Both right. Isn't that the best way? In the spirit of Fergie Suter versus Arthur Kinnaird, that's a good way to finish the show. Neil Andrews, always a pleasure, mate.
Cheers.
Always a pleasure to see you. And I
Sorry
hope you enjoyed this.
Knowledge.
The thing is, I start doubting myself, listeners. He's got that knack. He's got that ability to make you doubt yourself. Dark fiend. There we are. We're going to call it quits there. If you enjoyed this little show, we'll do some more in the future. Thank you for listening, dear listeners. From Neil and I, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.